So just a caveat, I just had a catastrophic system failure over here, but I think I got everything rebooted. But per Janice's thoughts, just some conversation starters around a position that we're taking to really get ready for what we're calling kind of new web experiences and kind of prompt generated experiences. And we think that the future of content to some degree is going to be completely managed by prompts and completely generated by AI. I'm just going to shut my door here. I got a little bit of an echo. So let me just share my screen here. We'll do an entire screen so we'll see everyone in a cluster for a minute.
All right, I see AI-powered dynamic website content.
Awesome, awesome. So the idea here is that, first of all, I've been running a digital agency out of California and Toronto for 25 years, and we've been primarily building on enterprise platforms. We built on AAM stuff and Magnolia, and these days we're doing a little bit more in the headless world with Agility, Contentful, and Storyblock. And what happened was we saw there was a race recently for the content platforms to be implementing AI. And so we as an agency are making recommendations and describing the future of platforms and helping our customers make platform decisions. And it seemed to be that from feedback from our customers is that the AI integrations into the content platforms were primarily around creating AI-generated content within the platform. So when you log into the platform, you can write something and AI will rewrite it for you. But our customers were saying, well, we've already written our stuff in AI. So that's not a really big motivation for us to be considering a new platform. And it really got me thinking about this idea of how do our platform partners evolve to use AI in kind of a more impactful way to authors, to brand managers, and also to us as agency partners that traditionally have developers running around building stuff. So one of the ideas was to allow our devs to integrate their AI coding tools more directly into content modeling and component creation. But then I started thinking, well, what's really going to happen out there with AI stuff, and what are the risks involved in our business and our content platform partners' business? And I thought, well, one of the risks is you start doing your search through AI search, and it now controls the results and the outputs of that search. And we saw that recently with ChatGPT doing its shopping search, where there was kind of buy now buttons right in the results window. And then I was thinking, well, what if GPT all of a sudden starts generating content based on what it knows about the brand? So let's say you go type in, I'm looking for the coolest white sneakers out there. And it just goes, check this out, and creates a website with all of the coolest sneakers, with a link out to brand people that are out there promoting different shoes and stuff. And then it owns everything. And we ran into this big time deploying a large pizza application. It was an ordering app. And then we were thinking, okay, we just built this big loyalty program into the app, but you've got to go to the website, you've got to get loyalty points, you're really into this one brand's ecosystem. But if the AI companies knew all of the best deals on pizza, and when you type pizza into the browser, it just said, this is the best pizza you can get. And it said, well, what do you want on it? And what's your location? It just said, get the ChatGPT loyalty points. And it kind of strips all of that business away from the customers. At the end of all of this, I started thinking, okay, the future of websites is to be generating dynamic content for the customers based on the information that it knows about them. So traditionally, you call up a website, even with personalization, which is really just a set of rules and pulling up some copy and some images, it tries its best to kind of present those to you. But what it's missing is a really dynamic experience. And something that validated what I was thinking was I was recently at Web Summit in Vancouver, and KPMG had kind of the most popular kind of space there. And the idea there was you got your picture taken, and then instantly on another screen, you saw you going up a ski lift with dynamically generated like clothing and skis. And I was like, wow, that took like 1 second. And I was in a really hyper-personalized experience. So I thought, well, how far away are we from creating a system where the user either searches or types in a domain name, winds up on a website, but instead of the website either querying a statically generated HTML file and presenting it or going into a database and presenting content, what if it hits an agent? And the agent just goes, what do we know about you? We have some first-party data with the brand itself. We have third-party data from cookies and all kinds of other things. And we also have the memory of all the stuff you put into chat, which is really all of your personal stuff. So like, okay, is this even possible? And if it is possible, we got to get ready for it. So and this is kind of some stuff on what I just said here. So we built a super simple prototype as a proof of concept, and it works. So I wanted to show you that, and then maybe just have a discussion around all of this kind of stuff. But let's see here. I'm going to just jump around a little bit. Okay, so one of our lines of business is supporting commercial real estate organizations with the websites for their properties and their corporate sites. So we did a quick demo of, can you actually hit a website and get an agent to generate the content? What you're seeing here is just like a super basic commercial real estate website for Metropolis Realty. And this little bit up here in the top is just some testing stuff that we're using to present different brands. And we created a couple of different profiles. I've got this guy here, Chinese intern, because we're trying to get it to output Chinese character content. And we're not quite there yet, but we'll probably have that figured out in a week or so. So what happens when you hit the URL? Oops. Oh, shoot. One second. This is my catastrophic breakdown here.
Also the charm of live demos, Chris.
I love live demos. Anyway, I'll just kind of talk to it. As we changed the name of the company, it re-rendered the entire site. And every time you hit the site, it re-renders it, which is really interesting. Then we changed the profile and it re-rendered per the profile. So the only thing we had to do was write a prompt around the corporate brand and write a prompt around the profile, and it auto-generated a site. Now, if we put more prompts into the style and have it refer to brand governance and the types of prompting for image or video creation, it can do all of that. So that was kind of one topic I wanted to share, and I'll just go back here for now. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit and get everyone's thoughts.
Great.
And then next I wanted to show some other ways that we're managing content completely outside of a CMS. So
all right, so let's start here, right? I think the idea hopefully was conveyed to everybody, and you saw a very authentic live demo, but I think you get the idea of having essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, prompts that generates a personalized experience, right?
Yeah.
So I think the question you're asking the group, is this the future of digital experiences? Is this the future of content management and beyond, and whatever we call these platforms? right?
Yeah, exactly. And we were able to do this in like a week. And now through that week, we could probably do it again in a day. We can build this all out. So
all right, then let's perhaps go to Amsterdam. Natalia, did you make it back from UX Connect? Well,
yeah, exactly. I was missing the vibe, so I joined today. So yeah.
So Natalia is with Canyon Bicycles. So I'll let you talk, Natalia.
Yeah, so we've been also experimenting a little bit with, especially with e-commerce features and sort of this hyper personalization idea, especially because we have a very complex portfolio of bicycles. I don't know if everybody is familiar with them, but we have mountain bikes, road bikes, gravel bikes, and 30 different options for all of them. So naturally, our customers get quite confused. So I'm wondering if you see this a little bit more as a conversational interface on top of the website, or as something that is intertwined or embedded within the user journeys in there.
yeah, we see it starting out to be kind of a hybrid where there'll be kind of your traditional images and copy and videos stashed somewhere, but the more that the system knows about you, and especially if you have repeat customers and you know what they bought before. So if they bought a mountain bike, the next thing they see is their bike and a rider on it with kind of a special promotion on tires, tubes, and all the kind of expendable stuff that you're constantly buying for your bike. Or I don't know, a year later it gives you an image of a gravel bike or something like that, because it knows where you are and it actually has you in the forest that it knows is nearby yourself. And it, it's just really hyper cool. So not only is there the benefit of the experience, but there's a lot of marketing buzz behind this kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Let's hear from Nicole.
So Chris, thanks for presenting. And Natalia, what you said resonated with me as well. This actually came up when I did the presentation on the maturity model at your conference, Giannis, in Aarhus. And somebody brought up the point like, hey, I think there's one more angle to this. And so if you're talking to a digital assistant in a conversational interface, and e-commerce is the perfect example. So let's say we're on that bike site and I'm asking questions like, I want these specific features. I don't want it to be over this weight. And so yes, you could have a digital assistant come up with all of those like those products, which is what we're actually doing right now. But imagine in the future of the page of the actual website changing so that it's like custom changing in front of your eyes. So not only are you talking to like a retail associate AI assistant, but then also the page in the background is changing dynamically to fit exactly what you want to shop for. And so that could be like the future of a website, assistant plus how is the page in the background changing as well.
Cool. Thank you. Perhaps we can jump directly back to Toronto, not to Chris, but to Janice.
Hi, Janice. I was just reflecting on this because I think, and I'm maybe a little biased, I totally think it makes sense for what Chris is saying, but I was in a room with CMOs from mostly, I would say, consumer packaged goods and kind of space. So this is more of a talking point, but how do we see, or how does this group see how websites will be influenced for B2B companies, where you're not transacting per se on the site, but there's the corporate site may be one part of a decision journey on where to work with the company, and there's going to be lots of conversations in rooms that are offline that may not be so picked up by the nuance of like a digital experience. Just kind of like throwing that out there.
Yes, no, that's a very good point. It's kind of the reflex to send it back to you, Chris. But before doing that, let me instead ship it to Berlin, to Andy.
Now, this B2B topic is really interesting. And I have to say, in our case, we have a very high percentage of B2B customers doing personalization And it's true that there's a lot happening outside the kind of digital channels. But at the same time, it's kind of like also, I'm not saying easy, but very standardized to measure what's the stage of somebody in a sales process. So for example, we have customers who are connecting the personalized experiences of their websites with their CRM data. And based on the CRM data, they're showing different documents, different information, especially because we know, okay, this user is in this stage, in this other stage, and so on. So it's at the end, it's really about like how you connect the data and how you activate the data in the different channels.
Thank you, Andy. And then perhaps to the beach, I think, Bob Watson.
Hey, Giannis, and hey, Chris, thanks for presenting this. It's really awesome stuff. Hey, I had a thought while you were explaining this, and I was wondering how this might apply to heavily regulated industries. So, for example, you know, there are a lot of times auditors come into, say, healthcare or finance companies and say, what did the website look like on a particular day at this time and what was displayed? So we're talking about hyper-personalized, dynamically created content here. And I'm seeing a potential problem where this might disrupt the audit trail. I think storing each and every information like this for each and every session, for each and every user could be resource intensive or costly. But I was wondering if you had any thoughts on this. And I'm only asking for curiosity. It's not a gotcha.
Yeah, I think one idea behind that would be every time the site is rendered, it's the JSON of the entire static HTML saved, which is pretty light. And you just kind of stash it somewhere. We're kind of pioneering stuff, so
yeah,
you have a really great point.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And then let's go to the West Coast. Lucy, our resident accessibility expert.
Good morning. And my thought process on this is that it scares the daylights out of me because I can't see dynamic rendering of accessible content. I can see you rendering a lot of interesting, flashy content, but very little of it would be accessible. And this goes to the article I wrote about how much, personalization can actually be collecting private data for people. So I'm not in favor of this idea at all because I can't see us doing it accessibly. We can't yet dynamically create accessible data with AI. So maybe in the future we can, but right now I just don't see that auto-generated data would be accessible. And I also don't like that data being collected on me.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Thanks for sharing your insights. Let's stay in the US. Derek? Let's see if Derek was there. And I see also there's a little bit more than usual going on in the chat, which is amazing. It is challenging my facilitation skills. And I'm not sure what Derek wanted to say, but I see some familiar names in the chat and a really good conversation there.
Can you hear me now, Giannis?
Yes, we can, Derek. I was just talking a little bit, doing the thing.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Lucy said and what Sean wrote in the chat. I'm not sure if people are ready for just a complete dynamic page. They want kind of consistent experiences, but I think you can kind of achieve both if you build kind of a standard website with your navigation and heroes and CTAs and stuff, and then dynamically generate the content based upon that structure already. That way, to Lucy's point, you can kind of keep it accessible and things like that. You're still going to have the structure that screen readers and things like that need, and you're still going to have the experience that consumers expect. But you can generate the content using AI based on first party data, based on browsing and things like that. I think you can do both. I think.
I think there's also, and then I'll hand it back to you, Chris. So in 15 seconds, I think there's also multiple layers of the conversation here. There's the website, creating that in an accessible, inclusive way. What I got the sense is that Chris was also scratching the surface of how we build the websites in a different way, how we build the websites based on prompts, essentially, right? And so I think there's that layer too that changes the game for website builders, whether it's WordPress or Kentico or Contentful or whatever, Squiz, whatever it may be. So with that said, back to you, Chris.
Yeah. Share my screen. Anyway, you can see my screen, eh?
Yes, we are crafting exceptional corporate services experiences for a young executive.
Yeah, so the idea, I just wanted to touch on the usability, which is something that we're concerned about. We can prompt in usability pretty good right now. So yeah, just getting back to this idea. So there's one company that has multiple sites. There is kind of a, you can see how the sites kind of reload, it runs through the agent. It's being governed by this kind of basic layout of a hero thing, some stuff down below, but as we change the persona, it keeps its structure but changes all the content. So I just wanted to show that every time I re-click or generate a new version, it's querying kind of our dummy personalized information and representing. So we're working on kind of getting the images and stuff sorted out. So yeah, and then I think there's other interesting things to think about when we're talking about CMSs and how they impact kind of the future of things. And there's two things that we're kind of playing with as well. One is voice content, and we're doing more work with voice agents. We just have a kind of an experimental project going on with an immigration company that experiences conversations with folks that have a lot of emotion involved in their situation if they're thinking of immigrating to Canada, and they have many forms to complete. So we created an extremely thoughtful, compassionate voice agent that is now kind of taking on the role of that human intake concierge, so to speak, and that we found through a little bit of testing, we thought people would be scared and put off by an agent, but in this case, they actually felt a bit more comfortable because they could say a whole bunch of stuff, like they're just saying things. So there's a bit of an experience there. And then we also found that as the agent is having a conversation, behind the scenes, it's kind of dripping bits of content back into the system that it can either complete forms for or create kind of their next experience as they go into the site based on information that they know that they're kind of sharing. So that's kind of interesting too, where we're able to kind of create prompts from voice agent conversations, and then kind of finally to just tie all this in a little bit. We've got a little project here. It's a service that connects people with boats with experts that can fix them. But the thing I wanted to communicate is we're testing out a workflow where the team that will be managing this, they use Contentful to manage their other parts of their business, how they manage experts and things like that. And this little picture of a sailboat is directly updated from Trello. So we've got the website sitting there waiting for a card that moves from doing to images with an MCP server sitting in behind. It's always listening to a new card in the images section that there is a tool they're already using. So it's another whole discussion point on the risk to some CMSs are folks that are already using a project management system. Monday, it could be a CRM system, wherever they have their data already. Now that everyone's coming out with MCP servers, well, the content platform in a lot of ways was simply taking content that kind of already existed somewhere. What if where it already exists is directly connected to the website? I don't know.
Thank you, Chris. So we have a couple of minutes left. I would like to just open it up, and I think that's also in your spirit, right, Chris? It doesn't necessarily have to be a traditional question-answer round. We can just do a couple of comments and reflections also from those perhaps who haven't said anything so far. If you want, it's a little bit easier for me if you use the raise hand feature.
One of the like if you have an enterprise that's using, let's say, Confluence, we can pull data right out of Confluence now, because what they're doing is they're taking it from their content generation tools, Google Docs or whatever that is, and then they're just moving into the CMS, and going through kind of a workflow they've already gone through.
I think Dean Barker has a blog post on this. I will look for it while I hand it over to you, Bill Rogers.
Yeah, so Chris mentioned MCP, and it's something that we're very, very excited about because all of a sudden this hyper-personalization, MCP opens up thousands and thousands of integrations that, you know, your AI can use to personalize content. And so I think not only does it affect when you're building a digital assistant, but I think that the opportunity to use that technology inside of websites and personalization is going to be big as well.
I think that's a lot of, yeah, back to you, Chris. I was just thinking that there's so many moving parts at the moment in this industry. I'm really thankful that we can get this group together to kind of share from the edge of the envelope of notching content.
Yeah, I think one of just our ideas or our requests or our availability to support our content platform partners is to start building these tools so we can be selling them to our customers and saying, use the tools you already have. We're going to connect through MCP servers or use appropriate language around that they understand, and say, you still need a content hub, let's say, because you've got departments all over the place creating content in different systems or in kind of siloed similar systems. So I think there's still the need for the platform because there's all kinds of other value there, but that's kind of what we're looking forward to over the next year, is being able to talk to platforms from a developer perspective through MCP servers and APIs essentially.
That's great. Any closing reflections? I would say that we kind of found a way to both cover the almost mandatory buzzwords at the moment. MCP was thrown in there, and AI was not just mentioned, but also shown. And I think different edges of it. I'm also really thankful that we got to see different sides of it and also have a conversation about it. This conversation definitely continues. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing openly. I know what we saw was a unpolished demo, to call it like that, and not necessarily that wins the biggest demo contest. But I think the intention here that you hopefully all saw was to make us think where we are right now in the industry. And I would say more than anything else, let's keep collaborating so that we can nudge things forward for the better, also keeping Lucy's comment in mind. So a big thank you from my side. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, see you, everybody.
See you. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.